Becky Who is a British poet living in France, so she can genuinely claim to be misunderstood much of the time. Writing and performing in both English and imperfect French, she is active on the Zoom poetry scene, including reaching the finals of several online slam tournaments. Slam poetry has become an integral part of her English as foreign language teaching, and she's proud that a number of her students have gone on to become recognised poets. She's keen to collaborate on projects that share the pleasure and therapy of creativity. Everybody, please welcome Becky Who.
Woo!
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Perfect.
Great stuff. Hi from France. Thank you so much, Kate and Ashley, for asking me to do this. I'm so excited. Congratulations to all the open micers. Um, and yeah, I'm just really happy to be here. And you know what? I asked Kate, I said, is there any particular poem you want me to do? And she said the one about sweets. So let me explain. I did what do you call it? National Poetry Writing Month in April, and I used, can you see that? I used Kate's prompt book, and I was putting them on Instagram. And apparently, her favorite one is the Day 8 poem, which is the prompt was serenading your favorite childhood sweet. And I'm going to start with that. A special request. It's dedicated to Kate. I remember a time when we ate opal fruits and starbursts stayed in the sky. A time we would ask for a marathon because the word Snickers made us feel shy. I remember chocolate oranges came in only one flavor and Tic Tacs only had three. When Polos weren't vegetarian and Nestle didn't own Roundtrees. When sweets were a treat that came from on high, not a guilty secret or impulse buy, a comfort-eating binge fest or a weight-watching crime, tear-jerking reminders of more innocent times. I remember real penny sweets and 20p chocolate bars, when corner shops sold by weight from jars. I remember when Woolies still existed as the go-to for a cheeky pick and mix. I remember when a sweet treat cost £1 or less, and you could still get a dentist on the NHS. There you go. That's Kate's request, and I thought I'd just throw in a couple more NaPoWriMo poems. Let me see. Day 23, the prompt was about manipulation, and it's don't worry, I've treated it quite generically. Communication is manipulation. Ideology in every sign. Don't get played in games of persuasion. Learn to read between the lines. No heart fits truly on a sleeve. Few lovers are sincere. Silver tongues speak to deceive. The words we think we want to hear. No man is a wall or mirror. We are all but clay, shaped and scraped by the words that fill our ears and minds each day. And one more. This is day 13, and the prompt was something about fun. And I made it about poetry. Sorry, you can probably hear the kids in the background. They choose now to make a noise, don't they? Sorry. Here we go. Poetry is a craft. The weaving of intricate lines, careful tweaking of delicate rhymes, twisting the existent into something new. Poetry is a pastime, a puzzle with a solution to find, a fidget for the restless mind, giving drifting brain cells something to do. Poetry is fun, hide and seek with alliteration, peekaboo with the imagination, the pleasure of joining words at play. Poetry is therapy, a place to vent or a place to hide, taking shelter from the rising tide or the tyranny of the routine lived each day. Poetry is resistance. We shape our message to say aloud, touch hearts and minds, or raise a crowd, a tool to make our voices heard. Poetry is a battleground. To oppose injustice and defend what's right, let's take a stand and rise to fight with this weapon called the word. Okay, I'm going to switch to more slam poetry now, but this is still actually national poetry writing because day one I cheated, and the prompt was a poem about loss, and I cheated by using it to sort of spit out a poem that had been inspired. As Kate mentioned, I'm a teacher, an English teacher, and I do slam poetry with engineering students at the engineering school in Grenoble. And usually it's a very, very great success. It's an absolute passion of mine. And this year something happened that led to this poem. There is a trigger warning for grief at the beginning and tears. Hope that makes sense. Okay, I'm going to just move my document because I can't see anyone and I don't like not seeing anyone. If I do that. Oh, never mind. Okay, so here we go. Did I start my timer? I bet I forgot, didn't I? So I don't know how long I've been going. I did forget, so I've got no idea. Sorry, guys. Right. In 20 long years of teaching, I've only cried 3 times. Don't get me wrong. I mean, in front of a class. In private, barely a week can pass without tears falling or me wanting to bash my head against a wall. It's just the price to pay for daring to care and trying to do my best. Not just going through the motions. That's got to put emotions to the test. I'm just too invested. I've cried for students and about students. I've cried in fear and anger and self-doubt over the system always messing us about. For budget cuts and endless requests to do ever more with less and less. A saint would weep in frustration in this kind of situation, trying to force feed most kids their much needed education. But in class, I've only cried 3 times. The first was the semester my mother died. 5 days compassionate leave is not enough to learn to grieve discreetly and deal with the yawning hole torn inside, so it didn't take much to make me break down and have to dry my eyes in the stuff lose. What else could I do? But at least the humans got to know I'm human too. Sorry, but at least the students got to know I'm human too, and sometimes let it show. The second time was a slightly strange occasion. It was for a song played during a student presentation, Forever Young by Bob Dylan. I'm sure you know it. I guess I was just overtired, or homesickness and hormones conspired to make the sound somehow bypass my brain and go straight to my eyes. I found myself in tears to everyone's surprise. It was no big deal. Something hit me in the feels, and if the students were a bit confused, it was a good lesson in the power of music. So the third time was for a very different reason. This year, during my favourite slam poetry project season. Now, this is work I really love. Seeing the move from fear to faith in what they're capable of. We've had poems about love, life, loss, hope, food, school, parties, travel, leaving home, texts about sex, insects, water, war, werewolves, butterflies, and garden gnomes. We've had themes to handle with care, works I've signalled to student welfare, poems that brought tears, nearly, or made me laugh out loud. I've seen readings in mesmerised silence, heard slams raise cheers from a crowd, and all in a foreign language. And of that they can be so proud. And yes, well, we know of the temptation to go astray and use digital assistants to do the job the easy way. So I insist on seeing their poems grow line by line and day by day, to witness the tortured questing for rhymes. I know it's tough, I understand. Just do your best, and if I can, I'll lend a hand. But this year my faith was smashed when not 1, not 2, but 3 different poem writing teams freely used ChatGPT. The worst was, there was no deceit. They really weren't trying to cheat. They believed this was a reasonable means of fulfilling the assignment brief. We're not talking rhyme zone, a thesaurus, or an occasional translated phrase. This was instant noodle poetry. Just hit enter, then copy and paste. I read some clever, well-constructed lines with digital rhythm and not bad rhymes, but so achingly hollow, like a fast food fix, or the mental ghostly chimes of a distant funeral bell I heard tolling for humanity as we program our own pathway to hell. What future for mankind if we're delegating creativity in some mindless pursuit of perverted productivity? I don't care if it's just your first draft. You think that's the way to learn the craft. You use a time-saving tool, take me for a fool, and I'm not accepting that. Texts went straight in the digital bin. And then, yes, I made them begin again. Find a topic that touches, just some place from which to start, then line by line, you can create your own art. I want the mistakes, I want the heartbreak, I want your words, whatever it takes. And it worked. Now they probably hate me for forcing them to produce, and there are still some amongst them that think poetry is no use. But I saw their faces, the look in their eyes, once they'd run the race, and their own poem was the prize. The pride and the realization that it felt good to write, to chisel and chip at meanings and fight the creative fight. They faced up to the challenge and overcame their linguistic fears. Made me want to cry a fourth time, but this time, happy tears. Okay, I forgot to warn you, that one was a bit long. Too long for any open mic night, so I'm totally abusing putting that in tonight. And all entirely true, I'm afraid. By the way, sis, I borrowed one of your lines, you saw that. And yeah, all true. And I've never performed that poem before, except I translated bits of it in French and used it in a conference paper I did recently. And it went down a storm. I should, poetry in conference papers is really the way forward. I'm sure Kate would tell you that already. But it was great. Now, I could totally change my set list because Kate wanted poems about butterflies, and she knows me well enough, I think, to know my butterfly obsession. Can you see my earrings? So, of course, I had to go looking for my poem about butterflies. So here goes. People sometimes ask, why butterflies? Why all the scars and earrings and bookmarks and trinkets and butterfly-shaped things? They joke, where's the tattoo? And why a butterfly? Why choose as your childish totem an animal so ephemeral and weak? Well, what can I say? Something about butterflies speaks to my inner extrovert. They've got symmetry and flaunt it. They do colour, not camouflage. Less hide and seek and more catch me if you can. And you probably can't. Did you know there is something about the way butterflies maneuver their wings that makes their flight path supremely tricky to predict, so predators don't know what to expect? Not to mention all those extreme weather events with the so-called butterfly effect. A flapping wing one day brings a hurricane weeks later, 10,000 miles away, from innocent fluttering mini-beast to unwitting harbinger of chaos, or at least, so the theorists say. Large-scale natural disasters aside, I could eulogize about the role of butterflies as pollinators, bees' rivals in helping flowers to reproduce. See how the smallest being can be of crucial use in nature's great game of survival. But that would be too wise. That's not why I like butterflies. Perhaps it's unreasonable to admire a lifespan so short and seasonal, but there's something sublimely inspiring about a creature that self-reconstructs from almost nothing at least 3 times, transforming from creepy crawly to airborne glory. Sometimes it's fun to push the metaphor and pretend my own metamorphosis has not ended. I yet owe the world a final explosion of outrageous colour. And thus, we are all butterflies, just fleeting flashes of brightness against the millennia of mountains. Still, we must have a greater impact than we ever realise in our brief lives full of surprises. So going back to the original question, why my obsession with flying insects so small and too fragile to touch? I don't really know why I like butterflies so much. They're pretty, that's all. So that was my poem about butterflies. And I have no idea about the time because I forgot to switch on. I think I've got one or two more for you. You tell me if I'm messing this up, yeah?
You've got time, Becky.
This one I'm going to dedicate to my sister. She's going to be totally embarrassed when I point out that she's here listening today. She's not a poet as such, although she's been known, but she is a writer. She writes great books, and so this is dedicated to Sarah. This poem is for the people who do not exist, for the characters that reside in the fictional spaces, the magical lands and faraway places where us bone bags go hide when things get too tough, when life seems too much, or else not enough. This poem is for those who escape word-built cages, weave between lines and climb out of the pages, fly across airwaves, smashing through screens to paint themselves into the minds of those ready to dream. This is a poem for the people we take as our own. With our skill to turn words into pictures at will, we can carry their clones, build mental flesh and bone on loan from our memory, but open to interpretation. The same faces in a million permutations, as sketched by each reader, the fantasy breeders, let the literature feed us, let whole worlds grow within, till we no longer know where here ends and dreams begin. This is a poem for the souls that suffer for us, living through the tough stuff so our emotions get trained. We can love without guilt, grieve without pain, practice hurting like pseudo-masochist cheats, testing fictional mistakes, tasting loss and defeat, building false hopes and fighting fake fears, licking the salt of our crocodile tears. Those unreal folk bear such sacrifice for those whom reality will not suffice. For us, every day they face fictional strife, so that we, in our way, can learn to live life. Okay, folks. Everyone all right there? I just thought I'd finish with my usual finisher. As we're talking comic poetry. I don't know if you've ever seen this video of the guy who invented slam, Mark Smith, saying, "This is the only poem that'll be remembered after I'm dead." And this is my equivalent. This is the only poem my kids know and like, and they always request it. And as we're talking a bit about words and things like that, I'm going to finish with Liar, Liar. Wouldn't it be easier to recognize a liar if when caught telling porkies, their pants really caught fire? In this warped form of justice, it would be rather fun to see a guilty con man get singed about the bum. The value of honesty would rapidly be learned if every untruth told led to buttocks being burned. Profiteering salesmen persuading us to spend would have to cut the hyperbole or risk a crispy rear end. And many politicians would have to change their game to prevent their seats in Parliament from bursting into flame. All this Brexiteering engineered to fool a nation, enough heat generated to replace a power station. And climate change deniers would surely burn so hot they'd end up contributing to that they say is not. Now there's one flaw in my plan to promote more honest dealings. What about the white lies told to protect people's feelings? Sometimes truth hurts too much and must be twisted to be kind. How then to hide the smoke signals arising from behind? And what about the poets whose job is to create? Some form of dispensation we must surely allocate. Signed authorization from the Office of Truth Screening. The words poetic license then take on a whole new meaning. Now my incendiary idea is clearly just a joke. In reality, where would we be with backsides up in smoke? We cannot expect the pyrotechnics to quell any doubt. So use your brain, that truth might reign, and the liars all die out. Thank you. I have no idea for the timing.
Woo, woo, woo. Perfect timing, Becky. That was brilliant. Everybody, please unmute and show your appreciation for Becky Who.
I'm sorry I tripped over. I'm usually really good at not tripping over, but I tripped over in every single
All
poem
right.
today.
Yeah.
You're
hear that.
human, Becky, and your poetry is amazing.
Fabulous.
The audience
Very
hears
amazing.
that, don't you worry. We enjoyed it. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. Thank you so much.